Tomba crouched behind the boulder, his tail twitching nervously. The two climbers paused, confused by the cat's sudden refusal to move forward on the familiar trail. Moments later, an avalanche roared down the mountain, sweeping over the exact path they would have taken. 2 lives were saved because a house cat refused to take another step. This was in the Swiss Alps, and the cat was no ordinary feline. Tomba was born in 1988 at the Berghotel Schwarenbach, an inn perched at 2,060 meters elevation. From kittenhood, he defied every law of feline survival, routinely climbing peaks that pushed human climbers to their absolute limits. The mystery remains how a domestic cat could not only survive but thrive at altitudes where oxygen levels dropped to 1/3 of sea level values. Tomba's first major summit came when he was just 10 months old. In May 1989, he followed a group of climbers to the top of the Rinderhorn, a peak standing at 3,454 meters. Just days later, he summited the neighboring Balmhorn at 3,698 meters. These were not fluke occurrences. Over his 4-year career, Tomba would complete between 15 and 20 ascents of peaks over 3,400 meters. The physiological challenge was immense. At these altitudes, the air contains only about 1/3 the oxygen available at sea level. For a cat with smaller lung capacity and a higher metabolic rate than humans, the arithmetic was brutal. Yet Tomba developed a unique climbing technique. He refused to be carried, walking every inch of the route himself. On steep, icy slopes, he used his tail as a rudder to correct slips, displaying agility that amazed experienced alpinists. His endurance was equally remarkable. Tomba regularly completed 9-hour treks that exhausted human climbers, then descended back to the inn in time for dinner. He moved with purpose, pausing when the humans paused and resuming when they did. His pace was deliberate, his route measured and purposeful. His selection seemed instinctual. While climbers struggled with the thin air, the cat navigated the death zone with an ease that defied biological explanation. What made Tomba truly extraordinary was his ritual before each climb. Each night at the Berghotel Schwarenbach, he would methodically sniff the boots and climbing gear of visiting alpinists. He seemed to be selecting his partners for the next day's ascent. If multiple groups departed at dawn, Tomba would wait by the door, letting some pass until he chose his preferred team. Then he would fall in line behind them, often taking the lead position on the trail as if guiding the expedition. Local guides began half-jokingly referring to him as a mountaineer's spirit reincarnated in feline form. There was an uncanny intelligence to his movements, a deep understanding of mountain dangers that went beyond animal instinct. He never rushed, never panicked, moving through terrain that claimed human lives with a calm certainty that baffled observers. The cat who should have been struggling at these altitudes was instead teaching lessons in mountain survival. The avalanche incident was not an isolated event. Tomba developed a reputation for sensing danger that went beyond normal animal instinct. On another climb, he suddenly halted his progress and refused to move toward a snow cornice that appeared stable to human eyes. His persistent meowing and unusual behavior alerted the climbers to investigate more carefully. They discovered the cornice was dangerously unstable, ready to collapse under the weight of a single person. This pattern of life-saving intuition became Tomba's defining characteristic. Over his 4-year climbing career, Tomba never lost a climber who followed his lead. His selection process became more refined with time. The nightly ritual of inspecting boots and gear was not random curiosity. He seemed to be assessing the climbers themselves, choosing those who exhibited proper respect for the mountain. When he trotted ahead on the trail, experienced alpinists learned to watch his behavior closely. Any change in his pace or direction signaled potential danger ahead. His movements on the mountain were precisely coordinated with human teams. He maintained perfect timing, pausing when rope teams needed to rest and resuming exactly when they prepared to move. This synchronization suggested an understanding of climbing logistics that seemed impossible for an animal. Local guides began referring to him as having a mountaineer's soul, wondering if some past climber's spirit had found new life in this fearless cat. The story spread through climbing communities, transforming Tomba from a curious local phenomenon into a legendary figure. But his impossible physiology was only half the story. What happened next would convince seasoned alpinists that this cat possessed a sixth sense, a near supernatural ability to predict death. Coming up, the incidents that earned Tomba the name, the mountain cat who predicted death. The most remarkable aspect was the consistency of his protection. While human guides sometimes misjudge conditions, Tomba's instincts never failed. His avoidance of certain routes or his sudden insistence on changing direction often averted disaster. This always proved justified upon later investigation. Whether it was hidden crevasses, unstable snow conditions, or changing weather patterns, the cat demonstrated an almost supernatural awareness of mountain hazards. Climbers who initially laughed at the idea of following a cat soon developed absolute trust in his judgment. Over his 4-year career, Tomba never lost a climber who followed his lead. He was the perfect mountain guide. But even a legend with a perfect track record has a weakness. The mountain never claimed Tomba, but a danger far smaller and far more common was already waiting for him in the valley below. We will reveal the tragic irony of his final days and the fatal flaw. This death sense extended beyond immediate physical dangers. Tomba seemed to understand the psychological limits of climbers as well. On difficult ascents, he would position himself beside struggling climbers, offering silent companionship during the toughest sections. His presence had a calming effect, reducing panic and improving decision-making during high-stress situations. The combination of physical protection and psychological support made him invaluable to expedition teams. Tomba's fame grew rapidly beyond the Swiss Alps. By the early 1990s, newspapers from New York to Japan were reporting on the mountaineering cat. Swiss television filmed a special documentary about him, capturing footage of his climbs on high alpine slopes. Commemorative postcards featuring Tomba der Gipfelstürmer were printed for tourists and fans. The once obscure mountain inn became a destination for visitors hoping to climb with the famous feline. This international celebrity status brought unexpected challenges. Increased tourism meant more people seeking Tomba's guidance, sometimes overwhelming the delicate mountain environment. The media attention, while celebratory, also created pressure that contrasted with the cat's natural solitary nature. Despite his fame, Tomba remained fundamentally unchanged, still selecting his climbing partners with the same careful scrutiny and maintaining his rigorous independence on the mountains. The tragedy came from an unexpected direction. During the off-season winter of 1993, while Tomba was staying in the warmer valley with his adoptive family, he contracted feline leukemia virus. This common feline disease proved fatal for the cat who had survived countless dangers in the death zone. The same immune system that had adapted to extreme altitudes could not combat this terrestrial virus. On January 27, 1993, at just 4.5 years old, Tomba was humanely euthanized along with his mother Tomasa, who had also contracted the disease. The irony was profound. The mountains that had challenged human climbers for generations had never threatened Tomba. He had navigated icefalls, altitude sickness, and avalanches with an ease that defied explanation. Yet a common illness found in valleys below proved insurmountable. His career ended not with a failed climb, but with a biological vulnerability he shared with every domestic cat. The legend who had cheated death so many times in the high Alps could not escape this final confrontation. The news of his passing saddened climbing communities worldwide. Those who had climbed with him shared stories of his extraordinary instincts and companionship. The hotel at Schwarenbach preserved his memory, recounting his adventures to new generations of visitors. Tomba's brief life had contained more adventure than most humans experience in a lifetime, yet his ending underscored the fragility of all life, regardless of how extraordinary it may seem. But Tomba's story is more than a tragic irony. His legacy left behind a crucial lesson for every climber who sets foot on a mountain, a lesson that could still save lives today. That is coming up next. The mountain that never claimed Tomba was ultimately defeated by biology. His legend endures as Switzerland's most famous cat, inspiring climbers decades after his final ascent. The story of Tomba reminds us that true mastery of the mountains involves understanding their dangers rather than conquering their heights. His legacy lives on in every climber who pauses to consider the wisdom of watching nature's signals. That decision to follow a cat's intuition instead of human plans saved lives that day in the Alps. If you want to understand how other animals have defied their biological limits, watch this next documentary about survival in impossible environments. Subscribe for more forensic breakdowns of nature's most extraordinary survival stories.